We do have regrets this evening from Councillor Forbes, and Councillor Bond will be just a few more minutes, and then he'll be joining up the meeting, but we can get started before that time. So I will formally open the meeting. My name is Mike Little. I'm the Mayor for the District of North Vancouver. I want to welcome everybody here to our community's house. We are all guests in it, here to serve our community. Tonight we have the regular meeting of Council for Monday, July 5th. Council, we have a resolution to exclude the public that's been circulated in the agenda. Will somebody from Council please move the motion? Councillor Back, seconder on the matter. Councillor Hanson, call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carries. Next item is the agenda, Council. We have an agenda that's been circulated. Are there any errors or omissions from the agenda as presented? Hearing none, will someone move adoption of the agenda? Moved by Councillor Back, second by Councillor Curran. Call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carries. Council, we have several sets of minutes that have been circulated with the agenda. This would be the minutes of May 10th regular meeting of Council, May 31st regular meeting of Council, and June 14th special meeting of Council. Are there any errors or omissions from the minutes of those meetings? Hearing none, will someone move adoption of those three sets of meeting minutes? So moved by Councillor Hanson, second by Councillor Curran. Call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carries. Okay, Council. I want to welcome everybody here to this evening's meeting. At the very front end of the meeting, we're going to have a period of up to 30 minutes for public input. This is for an opportunity for members of our community to share concerns for up to 3 minutes with Council. We have a list that has been circulated from our clerk's department. People signed up to speak. We do have 10 speakers that have signed up to speak. And plus also, let me just double check. I thought we had a speaker at an item. I don't have that on my list here. Okay, so we have just the group of speakers at the front end of the meeting. And so I will call people out one at a time, and have an opportunity to make a presentation to Council. So the first person on my list is Danielle Connor. Danielle Connor, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the Council.
Hi, thank you very much. First off, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity for our community to be heard on this very important issue at hand. And of course, I am talking about the Y Yoga in Lynn Valley and it being forced to close and hopefully finding a resolution with the District of North Vancouver. I know you are bound by the Local Government Act. That has been made clear by your latest correspondence. And we're not asking you to break any rules. We would just like the opportunity to get creative with solutions. There's no shadow of a doubt how much the studio means to the community of North Vancouver and beyond. Students come from Lions Bay, UBC, Richmond, Burnaby, and farther to practice at this beloved studio. 1,700 signatures in our petition as of 7 p.m. tonight, and hundreds upon hundreds of letters that have been sent to the district have made that abundantly clear. There's no other studio like it, as anyone who stepped foot into it can tell you, especially none on the North Shore. North Shore Elements is just one of a kind. I've read through so many of the letters, and everyone has their own story of why this studio means so much and how devastating it would be if we lost it. From a North Vancouver police officer finding solace at Y Yoga after suffering from PTSD and retiring from the force, to a cancer patient rebuilding his health and strength after chemo through his practice, to countless others saying in their letters how Y Yoga has helped them through incredibly difficult times, from depression to grief, addiction, eating disorders, divorce, just to name a few. In more than one letter, I read word for word, Y Yoga saved my life. And not just Y Yoga, but Y Yoga North Shore Elements in our community of Lynn Valley in North Vancouver. The reason some of our community members are still here today is because of this sacred space that Y Yoga created in the community. Now, in normal times, I know we wouldn't be having this conversation. These are unprecedented times, as I know we've heard countless times in the last year and a half, and unprecedented times call for unprecedented solutions. Normal would be 90,000 people visiting Lynn Valley Village every year because of Y Yoga, spending money on local businesses, whether they're grabbing a coffee at Delaney's, dinner at Brown's, or shopping at Nourish or Save on Foods or wherever else in Lynn Valley. I know some of you have small businesses of your own, so you understand the power of foot traffic that other businesses bring to your local small businesses. You just have to spend a day in the plaza to see how many people visit the studio. I saw it when I worked at I worked at Delaney's years ago. From 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday through Sunday, people are coming to Lynn Valley and going to Yoga and spending time and money in the community. We wouldn't be asking for this if it were normal times. Yoga wouldn't be in this situation, as we can all see after longer than a decade-long tenancy and the thriving business that they run in Lynn Valley. COVID forced them to shut down on 3 separate occasions, and when they were open, run at a minimal, ridiculously low capacity that no business could survive, let alone thrive, with the limitations that were set on them. This is a force majeure if I've ever seen one, and when a government should really be able to step in and help a business. The community has spoken. We are begging, pleading with the District of North Vancouver, with you, Mayor, and all our council members. As longtime taxpayers and community members, from the bottom of our hearts, we need the sacred space. For our mental, emotional, and physical health and well-being, it is vital. So we're asking you to please think outside the box with unprecedented, creative solutions to come to an agreement with Yoga so we can continue to be, so they can continue to be a pillar and anchor in this community that we call home.
Thank you so much for your comments tonight.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, next up we have Imraz Rapani. Imraz Rapani, can you hear me?
Hi, sorry. Yeah, I just needed to unmute myself, but I just want to talk about the fact that that we are a tenant at 1262 Lynn Valley Road, and our landlord recently sold the property to a developer. We believe it's a Polygon Developments, and they're preparing plans to redevelop this property. And one of my concerns is that I noticed the official community plan states that the future use of the site is designated as medium density apartments, and with commercial allowed at the grade. So my concern is that Polygon, being a more of a residential developer, might consider just redeveloping the property as a residential site, and all the commercial spaces on the ground level will be lost. And I think it's Lynn Valley is restricted in the amount of commercial space available to begin with. So there's a lot of businesses that have been there and have been thriving. I mean, this is right across the street from the Yoga that we were just previously talking about. And there's a lot of family-owned businesses there that have been there for so long and been so successful that would be lost to the community just because there's such limited commercial spaces available in Lynn Valley. And especially our business will be affected significantly because we're a liquor store, and we're highly regulated as to where we can relocate, and we're grandfathered into that spot. So it's essential that there is a provision made for some commercial space in the new development. That's all I have to contribute.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your presentation, and I don't believe they've actually made a formal application to the district, but we'll monitor that as we go and make sure that there's lots of opportunities for public input into that process. Next speaker I have is Tina Hopkins. Tina Hopkins, can you hear me? You're muted, I believe.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address council.
Thank you. My name is Tina Hopkins, and I live in the district on West Queens Road. Thank you for this opportunity to speak regarding the impending closure of Lynn Valley, of Yoga in Lynn Valley. I will echo many of the sentiments expressed by Danielle, but I too I feel compelled to try one last time to urge you to find a way to keep this valuable community asset open. I appreciate the most recent email many of us received from you, Mr. Mayor, but I question whether all businesses should be classified under one umbrella in terms of the levels of support needed from the municipality to survive this pandemic. Almost all have suffered, but many were able to continue operations even with limited capacity, and in the case of restaurants, with patio spaces and takeout options. For gyms and yoga studios, public health orders mandated complete closure at least twice. Danielle said three times, I remember twice, with no revenue from patrons possible. I agree that deferral of rent with an agreed repayment plan is a reasonable accommodation, as long as that repayment plan is one that tenants can afford to pay without going bankrupt. As a member of Y Yoga, I am not privy to the particulars of your negotiations with the company, and therefore am unaware of a request by Y Yoga for a non-market rent going forward. I have heard, however, that at some point during the past 18 months, the district did raise their rent, which, if true, seems truly punitive. In addition, my understanding is that all businesses that applied for rent subsidies, including commercial landlords such as the district, received them, which would have offset to some extent the loss of revenue the district expected from these struggling businesses. And so here we are, just as the provincial health restrictions are being lifted, when Y Yoga and other businesses can resume normal offerings and class enrollments again. And when the District of North Vancouver could renew the commitment expressed in its own official community plan to support this vibrant community town center, which incidentally I found online today, features a photograph of Lynn Valley Village on the official community plan website banner. Support for Y Yoga is support for Lynn Valley Village. Please reconsider your offer to Y Yoga, and if necessary, to other similar businesses. The Local Government Act wasn't written with the extraordinary conditions imposed by a global pandemic in mind. Please use your imagination and leadership to support attempts to recover from this plague. Keep our community strong with this vital place of wellness. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. The next speaker I have is Farhana James. Farhana James, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address council.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor Little and City Council for this opportunity to speak on Y Yoga. Over the past year and a half, I've had family members, friends, and colleagues leave the District of North Vancouver as residents and as business owners, not only because COVID was impossible to survive, but because market rents and housing costs were already crippling to begin with. I wish I could have the opportunity to respectfully discuss further with you what reasonable accommodation truly means in this situation for Y Yoga, but I'll get into what it means to my heart. I know you're in a difficult position here, but you have the power to keep our Y Yoga family together. Getting rid of Y Yoga means dismantling a family that has spent many, many years fostering, nurturing, and growing peace and healing within our community. With all of the strife and divide in the world, bringing people together from all walks of life is no easy feat and takes constant and consistent effort. Y Yoga North Shore is a pillar in nurturing a harmonious community, and I urge you to take a moment to understand that the last year and a half has not been easy on our community. It's been very hard being apart, and it's been very hard trying to survive. I urge you to reconsider your offer to Y Yoga. I see you as a true leader. I see you as a leader with vision. I know that you care about our community, and I know that you will do right by our community. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Next speaker I have is Heather Fleming. Heather Fleming, can you hear me? Just checking in with the clerk. I don't see Heather Fleming over on the main group. Do we have a contact with Heather Fleming?
No, Your Worship, we don't see her, and she hasn't checked into the meeting.
Okay, so we'll check back again, and once we get to the end of the public speakers list, and if they've arrived by then, we'll include them in the meeting. Next speaker I have, I believe I received a withdrawal from earlier today, which was from Carrie Strongman. And I don't see Carrie on the list. Okay, The next one, the person that I have up is Karen Wilson. And again, I don't see Karen Wilson on the call.
She was there a few minutes ago, Your Worship. We'll just see if she left. Yes, she's not in the meeting at the moment.
Okay. All right. Then the next speaker I have, who is definitely here, Sanford Osler. Sanford, welcome. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mayor Little.
Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address council.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Little and council. My name is Sanford Osler. I live on Cummins Place in the district. And I wanted to talk tonight about court sharing at Little Kate's, which has become a high profile issue. Throughout my life, I've played a variety of racket sports, including tennis. In fact, I met my wife through racquetball, but now we play pickleball. It's less physically demanding, but still very good exercise. And it's very social. We play doubles and we always change who we play with and against. And we're not alone. The sport is very fast growing because it's easy to learn and to play, and it's lots of fun. And I think it's a good sport for a municipality. It has a relatively small but dense footprint. You can fit up to 4 pickleball courts in 1 tennis court. And with doubles play, that means you get up to 8 times the number of players in the same square footage. In the short term, it's easy to add courts by just adding lines to existing space. Whistler to the north and Burnaby to the south are doing that with their outdoor tennis courts. And it's happening across Canada. And I will send the clerk a June 29th Globe and Mail article on this. And in fact, it's happening in North Vancouver, indoors. At Parkgate and at other gyms, our lines are added to 3 other sets so that 4 different sports can use the same space in winter. My main point, though, is pickleball is generally complements rather than conflicts with tennis. I played pickleball last month on some weekday mornings at Little Kate's, and whereas we had 8 players using our 2 existing courts, and often at least 8 waiting to play on those courts, often there was no one playing on the 4 tennis courts, and never did I see all 4 tennis courts in use. It's like 2 people wanting to use an orange. It turns out that some want the skin, one of them wants the skin, and the other wants the juice. And it's the same thing with court 3. The pickleballers wanted it sometimes, and the tennis players wanted it other times. And if demand exceeds capacity, there's an allocation method, because occasionally there's more tennis players wanting to use the courts than court space. So in the rare times when there is over demand, there is an allocation method. So I would ask you, council, to proceed now with the original plan to add lines for 2 new pickleball courts on court 3 of Little Kate's, keep track of the usage, and when both sports want court 3. And then in the winter, we can discuss how it went and make adjustments for next summer. Let's put that community court to better use. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanford Osler. Next speaker is Barry Hogan. Barry Hogan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me, Mayor?
Can. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address council.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Little and councillors, for the opportunity to address the issue, as Sanford has just done, on the issue of pickleball court capacity in the district, particularly east of Seymour. My comments today build on the email that I sent you all on June 30th. I won't consume limited time with stats, but suffice it to say that pickleball is acknowledged to be among the fastest growing sports in North America, and it's clear that's happening in North Van District as well. Pickleball's growth, popularity, and participants is far outpacing tennis, which, judging, as Sanford pointed out, by all the empty, unused, dedicated courts, I would guess that tennis, in fact, might be in decline. In an ideal world, the district would just build new purpose-built pickleball courts, as North Van Tennis Society suggests. Unfortunately, I don't think that's a good use of taxpayer dollars. There's more efficient options existing. To me, the most logical compromise is to repurpose some of these idle tennis courts and convert them to permanent pickleball courts. I've been at the West Van courts where they've converted one tennis court into 3 pickleball courts. Sanford, you've seen 4, which is better. If you converted one tennis court at both Little Kate's and Myrtle, it would go such a long way towards correcting the shortage of pickleball court capacity in the district, and it would address the inequitable balance between pickleball and tennis that currently exists. A less desirable compromise is this relining of existing tennis courts. To me, that's fairly straightforward and simple. It's benign. It's not perfect for pickleballers. We're always going to be setting up and taking down nets. Nowhere near as nice as just being able to walk on and walk off a court like tennis currently can. Lastly, this brings me to the sit-in by North Van Tennis Society last Friday morning at Little Kate's Park, where really we were just trying to reline one tennis court. And there's another 4 at Myrtle. To me, the audacity and the poor sportsmanship of that tactic should not be tolerated, much less rewarded. And I'm afraid, I hope that the North Shore News story following the protest was incorrect that said it would appear that this tactic worked, because I understood it to say that the district is no longer going to proceed with this relining. They're going to consider to defer it, continue to defer it. So in closing, I would urge you to revisit this relining decision, which would immediately be a step towards improving the shortage of pickleball courts in the district. But moreover, I ask that you seriously consider converting some of these underused tennis courts from dedicated pickleball courts. Thank you very much for your time and your consideration. Have a nice night.
Thank you, Barry Hogan. And I will just make a very brief comment about that. It's true we've had, for the last 2 years, we've been in negotiations between the Tennis Society and the Pickleball Association. We've been trying to work together. We've had a mediator participate, and the most recent meeting as of June 29th, it seemed that there was some agreement on the multi-lining, only to have one of the parties leave and decide to have a protest. And so it has left us with a very low level of confidence with the mediating process that's currently underway. And so the decision was made to not proceed with the multi-lining, because we obviously don't want staff in conflict with protesters at the space, but also to relook at the issue of whether even multi-lining would be a viable option, and whether or not we just have to move entirely to fixed and dedicated courts, which I think is the only way you're going to actually remove this conflict piece between the two, is not having the shared space. So we're going to be continuing in those discussions and negotiations, but I think we just had to make the move that we did on Friday to make sure that there wasn't a conflict. So thank you very much for your comments here today. Mr. Stewart, any further comments both on that or on why yoga tonight?
Your worship, I think staff are looking, with respect to the pickleball issue, they're looking at permanently relining, or at least on a pilot basis until we can have further discussions, relining the practice court at East Gates.
Not just relining, putting fixed nets in place.
Yeah. Yes. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So making it a pickleball court for all intents and purposes.
Right. It's already lined for pickleball, but yes. Yeah.
But just so the nets don't have to go up and down again. So that's one thing, your worship. The second thing is with respect to Y Yoga. We're certainly sensitive to the concerns that have been expressed about the impact on Lynn Valley. It's one of the challenges that we have of being both government and a landlord, which is very different than when you're dealing with the private sector. There's been comments about subsidies that we've provided to other businesses. What we've offered to other businesses is within the legislation that we have, and for the most part, that's been a matter of deferment of rent, with an understanding that it's going to be paid back within a certain period of time, usually the balance of the term. And so there has been no subsidies. We have continued to have conversations with the owners of Y Yoga and indicated where we can be, as being suggested, creative within the legislation. And it's our understanding that they're going to be submitting a new proposal that may meet our requirements, but we yet to see that. And unfortunately, This is not something that we can negotiate in public, nor should we be doing so. But the district is very sensitive to this. We don't want to kick Yoga out. In any event, it looks like even if they were successful, they would reduce the number of units that they have. But irrespective of that, we are trying to find a way to accommodate their issues, and we hope to be able to report something positively out to the community in the next week or so.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. And thank you to all members of the public for bringing their comments forward. I guess I will just double check in with the clerk. Did any of those 3 people who had put their names forward, did they join the meeting?
No, Your Worship, we did look. They are not here in the meeting.
Okay.
Neither of the 3 ladies.
Okay, well, if you had wanted to participate, you're always welcome to share emails or other correspondence with the district outside of the council meeting as well. Okay, council, moving on to regular business matters. The first item up is the 2021 Community Service Grants. This is item 8.1. And first we have a presentation or some quick comments from Tina Adva. Ms. Adva, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me, Mayor Little?
Yes, I can. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good evening, members of council, Mayor Little, members of the public. The 2021 Community Service Grants are before you today. The report recommends a number of organizations to receive grants this year. 46 new applications were reviewed by members of our Community Services Advisory Committee. They do this big task every year on behalf of the district. Some of the new applications recommended today include Friend to Friend Social Learning Society, which provides programs for children with autism and programs to demystify autism, and also clinical counseling at low to no cost through Family Services of the North Shore. A big portion of the grants recommended today are for programs that are in the 2nd year of their funding, programs that council approved last year. There are 61 of these. A couple quick examples: Seniors at Housing Risk Outreach Program by Hollyburn Family Services Society, and a community bridging program with the North Shore Multicultural Society, which aims to connect newcomers to volunteering opportunities. We heard from applicants again this year that COVID was still clearly bringing them challenges related to cleaning costs, recruiting volunteers, etc. As a result of this, the Community Services Advisory Committee, or CSAC, recommends a 10% one-time top-up be added to all those programs, including those that are new this year and those that are in their 2nd year of funding. The 3 recommendations before council today are to allocate $307,034 to the community service grants for 2021, and that a 10% one-time COVID top-up be applied to all of those programs, and that totals $30,703. And thirdly, that staff be directed to refer the request for an inflation adjustment, including an adjustment that may arise from looking at population growth, to the budget for the 2022 financial planning process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adva. Okay, members of council.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Staff recommendation is moved by Councillor Kern. Is there a seconder on the matter?
Second, Your Worship.
Councillor Back. Councillor Kern, further comments?
Just to thank staff and the community volunteers who go through those. I think this is, would this be our 3rd time, Mayor? I'm always amazed at the amount of care that goes into that, and they're very difficult decisions. So I did appreciate understanding what agencies were impacted by COVID in what ways. I thought that was helpful to see. I did just have a couple quick questions. The policy for, well, one thing I appreciated that there were certain lenses and criteria that we use to evaluate which organizations would be funded. And I thought it was a good opportunity to reflect on how the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to Canada, because every person, individual and schools and churches and governments all have a role to play in that. So perhaps that could be something that we could, as a community, work together to try to implement the 94 calls to action. So it would be interesting, as the district has made that a priority to implement those. It would be interesting to see how we can partner with different folks. I know the BC Chamber is actually doing, BC Chamber of Commerce is doing some work in that area. So it's encouraging to see different partners working to implement those calls to action. And then just a question on the policy for funding religious organizations. I don't know if I missed that. I just wanted to understand how that worked.
Ms. Adva?
Great, thank you very much. The report does give a link to the Municipal Community Service Grants Policy, sets out a number of procedures that we go through, as well as there's a link to our goals and guiding principles. Generally, as a rule of thumb, we do not provide funding to faith-based organizations.
I did just notice that we had this year, and I wondered if staff could speak to the process. Maybe that did stand out for me. Mostly, I'm not familiar with. I would have to review our policy, which I will do since you said that there was a link to that. Sorry, I didn't do that. But yeah, just trying to understand if that was a special case, ensuring that the funds, of course, are available to everyone in the same way, or the access to the services are available to everyone.
Yes, now I'm not on CSAC, but I think I can tell you from the history that there's a combination of grants that the churches can have access to. One, they obviously get the places of worship tax credit, which is administered at the province level. There are some that have a permissive tax exemption because they have park-like lands attached nearby that we consider to be park and public open space, and so that is also considered as a permissive tax exemption. But then also some of them do social service delivery, such as Highlands United Group. You'll see, I think, online as an example. Oh, it's not line numbered, but down on page 2 as an example. But yeah, my understanding is that all of those services are delivered in a non-denominational way. People come into the service, receive the service, and there's no expectation of a statement of faith or participation in the membership of that church in order to be able to get that socially funded position. Ms. Hatfield, does that accurately reflect our policy on it?
Yes, Mayor Little, and if with your permission, I'll just call on Erica Branson, our social planner who works with CSAC month after month, week after week, to review the applications to give you a little bit of more insight there.
Thank you. Ms. Branson?
Hi there. Thank you for inviting me. I think, no, as far as the guiding principles, faith-based organizations are not included in this grant stream. Councillor Curran, it may be, there is one program, the Queen Mary Family Learning Program, and they needed a host organization. So it's a program that is run out of the church, but it's not a faith-based program. It's actually a program that is for newcomer families and families that originated with Queen Mary School and actually has grown to be a lot of newcomer families across the district.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification. It was actually another one that I'll try to find if another member of council wants to speak, but I do want to just thank everyone again for their time. I think that this council has been supportive of and questioning, like, are we doing all we can? Because I know that it's a challenging time all around, especially for organizations that are working with folks who are marginalized for various reasons in our community. So I just wanted to extend my gratitude, and I'll try to find that specific line item that I was wondering about. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker is, I believe the seconder was Councillor Back. Did you have further comments?
Just briefly to say thank you to staff for their work here in putting this together. I found the summaries just describing each of the different programs and organizations very helpful. I always feel I'm so fortunate that we have these organizations in our community every time these sort of grant approvals come forward. And I am very supportive of the 10% one-time top-up, as many organizations, pretty well all organizations, have had to do things differently throughout the pandemic. I also noted in the report that the #1 observation or trend from these organizations was the need for crisis and mental health services. And we've seen that that's a theme with the pandemic all around the world. So certainly something we'll have to keep a close eye on, but I'm glad that we can offer this sort of support tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. I'd like to thank the advisory committee for their painstaking work with respect to the reviewing the grant applications and, of course, the staff. I have said before and will reiterate tonight that I would support increasing the budget for community service grants. I think a review of the grants that we make, the dollar values of those grants, the amount that's requested, illustrates very important work that are done by these groups. And I think it illustrates that the district gets very good value for money through these grants and through the services that are offered by these organizations. So I know I've made the comment at budget review, and I'll continue to make the comment when we review these grants. I think we could significantly increase this budget and it would be a good value for money. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Back, your hand is still raised. That's from earlier, correct?
That's from before, sorry, Your Worship.
Okay. Okay, so I see no further speakers on the matter, and so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Once again, on behalf of the entire council, thank you so much to the CSAC volunteers and the staff for going through and doing a very difficult job discerning where these funds should go. It's obviously an unlimited need with very limited resources, and we do respect and support your decisions in the process. Okay, the next item is 8.2. This is the child care grants. Again, I'm going to go over to Ms. Atva for initial comments.
Thank you very much, Mayor Little. The Child Care Grants Committee meets also on an annual basis to review applications to the Child Care Grants Program. Many of the projects that were proposed serve vulnerable children and families. A few examples of some of the recommended projects this year: new indoor and outdoor play equipment at different out-of-school care locations run by the North Shore Neighborhood House, a creative arts program at Sunflower Early Learning Society in Pemberton Heights, and childminding for Spectrum Mothers Support Society, which is really looking at support for mothers in crisis. We also heard from 4 projects that were not able to spend all of their 2020 grants in full and asked that these be carried over, and we recommend that they be carried over into 2021. The 2 recommendations before you today are that the child care grant recommendations of $56,514 and 2020 carry forward funds of $9,500 be approved, and also that staff be directed to refer the child care grants budget for an inflation adjustment in next year's financial planning process. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion from council? Councillor Curran.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Councillor Hanson, I think your hand was next up. Will you be seconding the matter? Yeah, thank you. Okay, Councillor Curran, your comments.
Thank you to staff, and I thought this would be a good opportunity just for a brief update, because childcare is such an acute concern in our community, and I know that there's been some changes in Seymour, announced some closures, and I know that we also got grant funding, I believe, to do some work. So maybe just a brief, Tina, just a little bit of an update to give us hope that we're making progress, because I think we'd be remiss to not talk about it a little bit in the case of these, in the context of these grants.
Thank you very much, Mayor Little, through to Councillor Curran. Yes, there are challenges for sure with childcare opening and closing, and those have big impacts on families, we know. I'm feeling really encouraged with our childcare action plan, which is having us work quite closely with the school district and with other departments to look at how we can make use of other public lands for childcare, nonprofit childcare. So we're keeping our eye out on funding for the fall and have been in contact quite closely with ministry staff to understand when those calls may come out, and hope to be ready with some projects to move forward for council's consideration.
Thanks. And then I guess the other thing is just what is the general sense of COVID? Like how did that impact our both parents and child? Like what are we hearing in our community from the impacts of COVID on childcare specifically for both the childcare providers and on the family or parent?
Thank you very much. I will call on Erica again. She works closely with the Child Care Committee, but certainly we've seen a lot the move to outdoor play space. A lot of the projects are for outdoor play equipment, getting kids outside, keeping them outside and keeping them entertained. With Mayor Little's permission, I'll see if Erica would like to add anything to that question.
Hey there. Thanks, Tina. Yeah, as Tina mentioned, there definitely was a trend for enhancing and making improvements to outdoor play. A lot more time is being spent outside because of social distancing. And then there was also, attempts to be accommodating families as much as possible in order for them to stay employed. So there definitely was, as you know, a lot of the childcares, they have stayed open since the beginning of the pandemic in order to support their parents as well as possible. And also some of them where they were taking in different and new families that would have been essential service workers. So, a lot of shift, a lot of flexibility that we've seen, and a lot of creative ways that they've tried to ensure to keep their doors open with as many kids in care as possible and to accommodate those families in the district.
Thank you. Councillor Kern.
No, thank you very much for that. I think that just a huge gratitude for all of the childcare providers in our community. It's a really hard job, and I don't think that we do enough to support our childcare workers in general. I'm really looking forward to some big moves when it comes to school, working with the school and other things like that. So we'll have our eye on that. Thanks for the update.
Thank you so much. Next speaker I have is Councillor Murray, followed by Councillor Back. Councillor Murray.
Thanks, Mayor Little, and I'll be supporting the staff recommendation for the child care grants. But the discussion in regards to child care and some of the challenges that we're facing, I think, really boils down to the amount of paid personnel that we're able to attract throughout the region, throughout the province, for child care. It's one of the biggest challenges facing the childcare community is that there's just not enough personnel to go around. The population is growing. I think sadly we saw that with the same challenge that we have with paramedics in the heat wave that we just experienced. We just don't have enough employees to be able to cover all of the needs of our communities. And we really have to have a deep discussion about how we're going to face that as we move forward, and certainly reach out to our provincial counterparts to address those issues because they're serious and we need to deal with it sooner than later. So I think that's one of the biggest issues that we don't often talk about. It's not necessarily the space that we have a problem with, although it would be great if we could put more childcare within the school system. I think communities and parents have been talking about that for a long, long time. And I think the school district is looking at those opportunities and what opportunities exist. But you can have all the space that you want, but if you don't have people that are able to work in those spaces, then it doesn't matter.
Good point, Councillor. Next up, I have Councillor Back.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to the Child Care Grants Committee and to staff for the report. As my young son just had his first day of daycare today, actually, his first introduction. This is timely that we're discussing this tonight. I'm definitely supportive of the child care grants, and certainly this is a priority for me, and as I know it is for, I think, all of us here, and look forward to future discussions around the types of partnerships and creative ways that we can introduce more childcare to our community. It's, as again said, it's a challenge that I'm living, and it is very much a real one for so many people across the district. So again, just thank you for the work here, and I am supportive of anything we can do to create more access to childcare in the district. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next speaker I have is Councillor Hanson.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Thank you to my council colleagues for their remarks. I agree with all the remarks that have been made. Thank you to the Child Care Grants Committee and to staff. My comment would be specifically on the issue of the Child Care Grants Committee. My comment would be similar to the community service grants. I believe these could be increased. I believe these offer very excellent value for money and are a very practical step for the district in addressing these types of community concerns. So I will again continue to raise it when we discuss the budget, and I'll continue to raise it at the child care grants. I think this budget item could be increased. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. I see no further speakers on the matter. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Once again, on behalf of the council, I want to thank the Child Care Grants Committee for digging through and making these recommendations, and also staff for their support. We do appreciate it. Sorry, Councillor Bond, I saw your hand go up. Did you want to speak on the matter?
For the next item.
Oh, okay. All right. Eager. There we go. Okay, moving on to item 8.3. This is the Community Heritage Grants Policy and Terms of Reference update. Again, I'm going to go to Ms. Atva for introductory comments.
Thank you very much, Mayor Little. Yes, usually at this time of year, it's the child care grants and the community service grants, but this year as well, we have an update to the Heritage Grants program, so it's quite nicely timed up. We have had for more than 10 years a Heritage Grants program here at the district. It's been fairly modest in scale, about $3,000 a year, and that's made possible through the interest on an initial investment that the district made, and that's managed by the North Shore Community Foundation. Our Heritage Strategic Plan from 2019, which earned a 2021 BC Heritage Award this year, identified a need to look at the Heritage Grants program and increase its effectiveness. And last year, Council approved increasing the Heritage Grants program budget to $50,000 a year as a way to increase and provide more meaningful financial incentives for heritage conservation. So to guide this new annual funding, a new community heritage grants policy is proposed. We haven't had one before. The policy in the report sets out 3 types of projects. One, heritage planning projects, and that's for things like statements of significance, conservation and maintenance plans, up to $1,000. Second category for heritage conservation, that's the physical work to structures like repair, restoration, but also propose that this include work to upkeep heritage trees. And this is for $1,000, $5,000, or $10,000, depending on the type of project and level of protection. And the third category, which is new heritage awareness and education, up to $1,000. And that could be for events, for example. Also with this report is an updated terms of reference, and this is to the agreement that the district has right now with the North Shore Community Foundation. It's really to align it with the new policy and to increase the maximum grant amount from $500 to $1,000 for those physical projects, the heritage conservation projects. The 2 recommendations today are that Council approve the new Community Heritage Grants policy, and that the updated Community Heritage Grants Fund agreement, that's our agreement with the North Shore Community Foundation, the terms of reference be approved as well. And our Community Heritage Advisory Committee also worked hard to give comments and feedback on the updated policy and terms of reference, and recommend that they be approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Members of council, I believe Councillor Backey or Councillor Bond, you wanted to speak first?
Yeah, I'll move the recommendations.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on the motion? I'm happy to second. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Bond.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Little. Just wanted to add that as council's representative on the Community Heritage Advisory Committee, the committee has worked hard over a long time, several months, to provide feedback and comment on both the grants, the grant process, and on the terms of reference. One of the things that I think here that's exciting compared to the past, where the committee would only have a very small amount of money from the foundation, $2,000 or $3,000 a year, to award to relatively small maintenance projects. I think the approach that we're taking now and that's recommended is a laddered approach. Obviously, the committee wants to see more properties designated, more properties preserved, and so the policy as it's been put forward kind of ladders towards that. You'll see that if there's more money available to properties that are legally designated, there's money available for people to start that process too. And I think the hope is that with this new grant policy, people can get interested in their heritage property. They can, apply for a grant to get a heritage statement of significance. And then over time, if they are looking towards moving towards legal designation, there are greater financial incentives in the grant process to do that. So I think that's a step forward for sure. Obviously, there's a lot of challenges right now with heritage preservation, mostly due to land valuation and the market conditions in terms of housing. But I think this is a step that we need to take. It's recommended in the heritage strategic plan, and I think this is a good policy.
Yeah, thank you. Very similar comments from me. The challenge with heritage is always that it doesn't matter what the grant is going to be, it still requires a person who just wants to love a heritage home to be lined up with a heritage house. And so the grants are to some degree symbolic. They're getting more substantive, but they're still nowhere near the cost that somebody's going to have to incur to be able to maintain the facility, but it's still good for us to raise awareness of heritage homes in our community, and also making sure that the homeowners themselves feel supported by the community. Because frankly, a lot of these, we went through a really long period of time where the estate-wide lots in some cases, or other physical characteristics of a lot of the heritage homes was actually putting a target on their back and making them ripe for redevelopment. And some of them really were fantastic representations of the time period, and therefore they were definitely worth retaining. Some maybe not so much, but in the end, boy, if you can match up a lover of community heritage with a heritage home and have them support that house into the future, it's just such a critically important part of telling the history of this time period for our community. And so I'm glad to support this. Councillor Kern.
Thank you to staff and to the committee for working on this new policy. I would like to see more money for trees to be, I'm assuming that the idea of this is that if there was an older tree on a property, that it would be an incentive to not cut down the tree. Maybe staff could clarify what the intent of that designated heritage tree in tree protection bylaw. We'll start there. That's my first question. I only have two.
Ms. Adva.
Thank you very much, Mayor Little, to Councillor Curran. The proposal in the policy is that up to $1,000 be available for work, maintenance, aesthetic work on designated heritage trees. I checked the tree protection bylaw, and I believe there are only about a dozen or so trees that are listed as already designated heritage trees. So it's a fairly finite number of trees at this point of owners of those properties who could apply for this. However, there is a mechanism in the tree bylaw as well to have additional trees added to the list of designated heritage trees.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that was something that I was really excited about when that report came forward, was that it was identifying, because there's people in our community who have expressed concerns about us not having yet identified trees that we need to. So those are more, I think there's going to be some that are on public property and some that are on private property. Again, trees don't really care. They don't understand public and private property. But so that was one thing. And then I guess I wondered about the incentive. Sometimes a heritage house can't be, an agreement can't be reached and the house is going to be demolished. And we are looking at demolition policy updates that would require deconstruction versus demolition. And I just wondered if staff had contemplated if that funding could be used to help support deconstruction of heritage homes, because a lot of them do contain old growth lumber. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I don't see that as part of the policy, and I don't believe it was distinctly spoken about as part of where the funds could be. I mean, again, the three types of programs, the planning parts, getting more statements of significance, which really describe what the values, the heritage defining characteristics of a property are, of a house are, and heritage, maintenance and conservation. The policies do set out what are eligible and ineligible, so there are possibilities to look at that further. The heritage, so it's really around that category where we're looking at the physical works, the planning, the physical works, and then heritage awareness. So I think, as you asked this question, Councillor Kern, I think there can be extensions in each of those possible categories, but it's not specifically been called out to look at deconstruction as part of this policy, to look at using the funding set aside by council for heritage preservation, conservation, education, and awareness.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think anyone in the Heritage Committee wants it to reach that outcome. I just wondered if it got there, if we would be able to, because I know there's been some really creative partnerships with Habitat for Humanity, for example, where we could reclaim, an existing home and turn it into something new that provided a broad benefit to the community, for example. So this may not be the right place for that. I'll just put it in staff's mind for where it could fit in with other places. But thanks for bringing it forward. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Kern. Next speaker I have is Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Little. And it certainly helps when we have a council appointee on the committee. And I know yourself and myself have also sat on the Heritage Committee, and Councillor Bond on it this year. It begs the question that we should put maybe a councillor on every committee that we have to bring these initiatives forward and move them along. And certainly we have moved forward in regards to, increasing amounts of money for heritage preservation and providing more incentives. I think the issue of land values was brought up at the beginning of the discussion, and that's certainly the biggest deterrent, given that, taking on a heritage home is a love that you have, a passion that you have to rebuild these gems and maintain the history of the community. Years ago, I had an opportunity to drive down the Eastern Seaboard, and there's whole towns that have been protected, and it's what draws people to them. I can't say that the towns in Canada were as in good a shape as the ones that were in some of the states in the US, and there was a stark contrast, and it was quite sad. People go to Europe to visit France and the UK, all of Europe, to be able to see that history and what was, and it's cherished. You would never consider tearing down those communities and those blocks and those homes. I think I've mentioned that my stepfather's house, the new part, is 300 years old, because it tells such a story. And, I think there has to be a more significant financial incentive. The province needs to look at this, because once all of this is gone, it's gone forever. It doesn't truly tell the story of our humble beginnings. And I think it's important to protect what we have left, and certainly those iconic architects, within our community, and that were inspired by some of the greats, certainly Frank Lloyd Wright, to, construct these buildings and look at them. But, property speculators, developers, and homeowners are wanting, to be able to maximize the property values that they've invested in. And, that's business, and I get it. But at what cost? And maybe BC Assessment needs to look at this. Maybe there needs to be a larger tax incentive than, the thousands of dollars. I think we need to start talking about, if we do want to protect our past, we need to talk about, real money. And I'm afraid that these opportunities that we're discussing tonight, although there's something, I just don't know really what's going to be left in 10 or 20 years, because land values will only continue to go up, sadly. And I think lots will disappear.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. I see no, oh, Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'll be very brief. I just wanted to say how much I supported the comments of my fellow councillors when they speak about the value of heritage. Once lost, it's lost forever. Also wanted to thank everyone responsible for putting this policy together. And there is increased funding. It is an incremental step toward showing that we do care about heritage. And I, for one, will be supporting any and all efforts to protect heritage in the district. I view it as a very treasured asset for the reasons stated by my council colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. I see no further speakers on the matter, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Great. Thank you very much, Council. Thank you, Ms. Atfa, for your presentations tonight. We do appreciate it. And thank you to the volunteers who serve on our Community Heritage Commission. I think it's a commission, technically, for all of their volunteer work that they do. It can be a lot of fun. I always look forward to Heritage Week, which typically falls, I believe, in September. We used to do a lot of fun activities when I was on the committee, including I used to do a guided tour of the harbor, where I was the MC telling people stories about the history of the pioneering history of Indian Arm and the industries on the North Shore, the Second Narrows Bridge and the Athabasca and the crash of the bridge and the collapse of the bridge and all this other fun history. And it was really just great to see people get engaged and learn about their own community. You really can't replace it. So thank you to all the volunteers that continue to do that work for us. We do appreciate it. Okay, Council, we have completed the business of the regular meeting of Council tonight. And now we do have an opportunity for reports, which some nights we're right up against the clock, and sometimes reports goes by the wayside, but I think tonight we have an opportunity for ample reports. So we'll just check in with Mr. Stewart. Do you have any updates that you'd like to do as reports at the tail end of the meeting here tonight?
None, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to members of council now. Councillor Hanson, you have your hand up. Is that from the last item, or you wanted to make a report?
I have two reports that have queued up for this moment when we actually have a minute before midnight to give the report. I wanted to report, first of all, on a meeting of the North Shore Standing Committee now on substance use on January the 9th, 2021. I now chair that committee, and that committee has now changed its name from North Shore Standing Committee on Substance Abuse to North Shore Standing Committee on Substance Use, in an attempt to modernize ourselves and prioritize our focus on harm reduction. I also wanted to report a presentation at that committee by Chris Van Veen of the BC Ministry of Health and Addictions, who reported on the Vancouver model of safe supply. The presentation occurred, of course, within the backdrop of terrible levels of deaths due to illicit drug use and fentanyl and carfentanil toxicity in street drugs in British Columbia. The presentation discussed the advantages and limitations of the Vancouver Safe Supply model, and spoke in terms and gave recommendations which were very consistent with the Mum Stop the Harm motion, which was, of course, passed by this body earlier in the spring. I also wanted to report that as acting mayor, I attended on June the 17th a panel discussion of a group called ASH, which is Action Against Smoking and Health. Mayor Buchanan of the City of North Vancouver was one of the presenters, and gave very detailed and insightful commentary. Takeaway from the event, which had lots of good information, was that tobacco smoking remains the single leading cause of preventable death in Canada. So notwithstanding great inroads that have been made with respect to tobacco smoking, we could prevent more deaths by eliminating tobacco smoking than any other single cause currently. And there was discussion of regulatory models to address and reduce the harms of tobacco smoking. And there was also discussion of various bylaws across Metro. I felt on the whole, the district's bylaws fared and compared well to the bylaws across Metro. But obviously, given the importance of the issue to health in Canada, it's a topic area I'd ask all of us to keep front of mind, and obviously one that is worthy of our attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Curran, you have a report to make?
Yeah, I just, it was a great segue, Councillor Hanson. If we're talking about health, we have to talk about the impacts of the fires and of the heat wave. And so I just wanted to recognize the tragedies that have happened in Lytton and that are some of our staff, I believe, have been assisting. I think everyone tries to work together when things like that happen. But also some numbers came out today from Metro Vancouver Coroner's Office. And I don't want to say exactly what this is yet, but like hundreds and hundreds, we can safely say, of people died from the heat wave, during the heat wave. And I think it should just be a real wake up call to everyone that when we talk about public health crises, there is no greater public health crises than climate change. And so I never am going to leave a council meeting without talking about it, because I think we just need to elevate the urgency to all of our actions and making sure that in one of the wealthiest cities in the world, we had lots of marginalized folks. And it's what we know about climate change impacts, that they will be experienced by people who are already marginalized. So it's seniors living alone in walk-up buildings, and long wait times to get ambulances, and our systems were not able to provide life saving supports. And I just want to address that and to let the community know that that we're looking at it at every level. We have to. Yeah, my heart is with everyone that is evacuated, and now I don't know how many fires are active right now in British Columbia, but it likely won't be long until the smoke is here as well. So it's a lot to think about, but I think we have to start by talking about it a lot more. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor, and our heart absolutely goes out to the people of Lytton and their families and friends. We're all shocked and devastated to see that fire move through that town so quickly with a 70-kilometer-an-hour wind. And it's normally a town, if you're familiar with Lytton, I drive through all the time. I do a lot of road trips in that corridor. It's got the river up one side and the highway up another side. It's got very significant fire breaks. And so you wouldn't have pegged it as being a high likelihood for a major fire because of those fire breaks, even though it's the hottest community around. But this originated inside that zone, and I don't think they've made an official announcement on the cause yet, but it's just devastating and so quick that it moved through and wiped out the hospital building and wiped out the paramedic station that's there, plus everything down the main drag. I posted something on social media that was shared from the mayor of Coquitlam. His daughter had worked in the ambulance shed just that past week. They rotate in and out of the space, and so he was sharing what the impact was on their community because of that. So it just absolutely shocking that it could move through a modern town so quickly. There you go. It also in the previous week set the Canadian national all-time record, and then broke it, and then broke it. And so it is definitely an unprecedented heat wave that hit that space. Councillor Murray.
Well, I just wanted to add to the number of power outages that we had that were unprecedented during this heat wave. And, the amount of power that's being used to try to keep, communities cool, homes cool. I think people in record numbers are cleaning out, companies with air conditioning units and fans because it was unbearable. Really for those who had single family homes, they could get into their basements and keep cool. It seemed to be the only place for many to be able to find some refuge from the heat. So it's all of these things that go along with, our planet the way it is, the destruction that we've, done in the last 100 years, and what we continue to do. Certainly, we're trying, and that's good, but you wonder if it's enough. There's so many communities. Lytton, it's devastating, and there's communities sitting right now on evacuation alerts. And what will they wake up to? I know Harold Steves from Richmond, councillor, has a ranch up near 100 Mile. And at our board meeting a few weeks ago, he commented that the pines within those communities are dying, just like the many stands that we see on the West Coast, the impact of the looper and on these forests. And, it's something that we really need to look at. I don't know how, we deal with it. It's such a vast issue, but it's certainly, it's sadly going to be our new norm. And how are we going to, we were in June when that heat wave hit. We're not even at the height of our, our hottest months of the summer. So what do the next 2 months hold? It's all very overwhelming.
Okay, Council, that's all the reports I see. I don't know that I'll add too much more of my own comments, other than I know that the North Shore mayors, MLAs, and MPs are trying to get together to have a discussion about homelessness coming up in the next 2 weeks. Looking forward to that discussion. We also just this last week had good discussions about. Sorry, here I had a note here written. And of course, right then my screen locks up and I can't find the notes of the thing. And my memory is failing. We had the North Shore Homelessness Action Initiative meeting. This is with the 3 North Shore mayors and the MLAs discussing homelessness matters on the North Shore, basically coordinating what's going on in the 3 different municipalities and seeing where we can better support each other. But I also had some very, very other positive meetings this week. Participated in a tour of the new Argyle High School. It is a wonderful facility that children are going to be able to use as a great center of learning for decades to come. It's a remarkable facility, actually, when you compare it to the old cinder block building that I went to elementary school in here in North Vancouver. So I take an opportunity to go by and see that place when it's open. Yeah, they're still working on the landscaping. That'll be in flux until probably October, both the removal of the old building and the landscaping that they need to do there. And then they're obviously still working on Handsworth as a project as well, but it's progressing well. But I got to participate in a number of student graduations and also recognitions of student excellence in our community. This is where basically all of the kids who have excelled in different programs are recognized for their extra effort during the year. And it was a lot of fun, but I look forward to it being in person again in the future. It's a lot more celebratory when you can actually see people. Yeah, other than that, I don't have any further reports to make at this time. So Council, I'm going to
move adjournment.
We've completed the meeting. Councillor Murray has moved adjournment, and I will accept. And I will just state that on a week from now, on July 12th, we have a workshop planned, and that'll be a public workshop. So I look forward to seeing everybody there. Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Councillor Murray was.
Well, I just, sorry, everyone. I just with your last comment, there was a posting on Facebook the other day that I had shared, and I just wanted to, Mayor Little, your comments about congratulating during the graduations, all those young people that got that extra, you know, recognition for the hard work that they put in through scholarships and awards. And certainly we applaud them for that hard work. But certainly there's the rest of those students that just work hard all year round just to get through school. And certainly in the last year during COVID, it's been extra hard on families and young people to be in school. I have 3 in the school system. And last year, my daughter graduated during COVID, and it was a very challenging time for many. So I just wanted to, you know, say congratulations to all of those that graduated and made it through the school system, not those that just got awards, but everyone. Everybody works hard and they work at different levels, and they should all be congratulated for their work. And I know you absolutely meant that with your words.
I thought I said it first. I thought I said I
Yeah.
participated in the graduation ceremonies.
Yeah,
felt
all
for
of them.
And then went on to the excellence one. But
Yeah, I just think it's important to recognize all of them and make them stand out as well.
absolutely.
you.
And although I didn't have any graduation this year, which is odd.
Next year.
I got 4 in different spots along the way, but
Yeah.
yes, obviously we want, and we were able to participate, the district was able to participate in some of the graduation parades that took place.
Yeah.
Just as an alternate way to recognize that sort of coming of age and passage and completion of that time. And but again, we all look forward to in-person celebrations of those achievements. So
Thank you.
thank you all so much. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone.